Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. You're right in the way. You're right in the way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jagannatha, Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai God Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai God Hari Bol. You're all sitting by the door so you can make a quick escape. Is that the idea? Why don't you come sit over here? She motioned, but you like over there? Because more people will come afterwards, and what happens when people come afterwards is you're going to have to move up forward anyways. Thank you very much. We're friendly. You can stay because you're in charge. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, there's more children than adults today, especially over on this side. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to hold the attention of all these young devotees. Maybe we can start by asking you some Bhagavad Gita questions. Yes? Let's try an easy one. How many verses, raise your hand, don't just blurt it out. How many verses are there in Bhagavad Gita? I saw your hand first. 700. Is he right? Yeah. You sure? Okay. How many chapters are there in Bhagavad Gita? Oh, I saw your hand first.
18.
18. And what is 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals? 18. So we were discussing the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And some of our acharyas describe these middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are very special because their focus is on bhakti. So if bhakti is in the center, this is you have to be a little good at guessing. What are the other two general categories of the yoga system? Children now, not adults yet. Bhakti is in the middle. And what are the other two systems of yoga that on either side? I see one hand. Anyone else? Think about it. Bhakti is in the middle. And then what's on the either two sides? Bhakti is independent, and the other two yoga systems are dependent on bhakti. He's very enthusiastic. Go ahead. Karma yoga and Gyan yoga. What do you think? Is that right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask you. What does karma yoga mean? You've heard of karma before, right? I've terrified you. Okay. What about your sister? What does karma yoga mean?
Like the good deeds you do.
You perform your prescribed duty and yoga. You offer the results to the Supreme. Karma yoga means work where you're detached from the results of the work. But when you work, there's results. So what do you do with the results if you're detached from the results? You throw them in the garbage? What do you do with the results? I'm asking. You're the elder among that group over here. You offer them to Krishna. Yeah. That's karma yoga. So let's go on the other side. You brilliant scholars there in the back row. Don't look to somebody else. I'm looking at. Can any one of the 5 of you in the back there? There's 6 of you, but 5 of you. Yeah, yourself included. Could you give a little definition of Gyan yoga? No. You already. We know what's the yoga part you offer to Krishna, right? That's the offer to Krishna part. What's Gyan? What is the meaning? Gyan means? Oh, no, don't point to him. What does Gyan mean? Come on. Gyan means knowledge, right? Thank you. So, Gyan yoga is strengthening one's understanding of transcendence or what's beyond the mind and senses is the intelligence, right? Intelligence is beyond the mind and senses. And what you can understand with your intelligence through the scripture, which is coming from transcendence, trying to connect with the Supreme through knowledge of the Supreme, cultivation of knowledge, Gyan Yoga, connecting with the Supreme through knowledge. We'll go back over here, you guys. Connecting with the Supreme by working while offering the results to the Supreme. Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga. And right in the middle is Bhakti Yoga. I'm doing this because we've been discussing the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which focuses on Bhakti Yoga. Now, one can say, correctly, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga. But we can also correctly say the first 6 chapters make some emphasis on work without attachment to the results of work by offering the results of your work to the Supreme. There's other things, of course, but there's an emphasis on that. Now over here, Gyan Yoga, more detailed knowledge. Tomorrow evening we're going to discuss the first verse of the next set, the last 6. We're going to discuss chapter 13. 1 through 6, 7 through 12, 13 through 18. So tomorrow evening we're going to discuss 13. And then the cherry on top of the cake is going to be the final instructions of Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. That's the plan. So the middle 6 chapters are describing bhakti, focused on describing bhakti. And the description of bhakti is what? If you were to describe bhakti, what would you say bhakti is? You've got your hand up every time. Let's see if someone else can put their hand up. Your friend right next to you by your left shoulder in the red shirt. What would you say a little definition of bhakti is? Little one. Not sure? Okay, go ahead.
Devotion to Krishna.
Huh?
Devotion to Krishna.
Devotion to Krishna. So what are the different, there's 2 main parts of devotion to Krishna. It's what the mind does and what the body does. Because you can do things and your mind is out to lunch. And you can do where your mind is and your body is doing weird things. Or inert. Or just doing meditation. So devotion to Krishna, so rendering service to Krishna is something that the mind does and something the body does. Would you agree? Thank you. So the middle 6 chapters is focusing not just on the activities of devotion, but what the mind does. Because practicing, we're all practicing. A little bit, at least a little bit. But there's something that you do with your body, but there's also something very important in bhakti, and that's what your mind does. What does where the mind kind of wanders, doesn't it? Don't tell me where your mind wanders. I'll let Super Soul, you can inform Super Soul where your mind is wandering. But the mind wanders, and the idea is to bring the mind to Krishna. And your activities dedicated to Krishna, those are the 2 parts of bhakti. I mean, you can say other things, but that's what Krishna says at the end of chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita. So far we've covered 5 of those middle 6 verses, middle 6 chapters. And chapter 12 is the conclusion, and chapter 12 is called Devotional Service. Devotional Service. So that's our topic for today. All of this was just to get our younger generation people alert. Rather than, I'm bored, I want to go play or something. So you get a chance to hear chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. And interestingly, chapter 12 comes after chapter 11. And what's the emphasis in chapter 11? We discussed chapter 11, didn't we? Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is the universal form. Have you ever seen a universal form? I've not seen a universal form. But Krishna showed his universal form to Arjuna, because Arjuna asked him to show it, because in chapter 10, Krishna said, although I exist outside of everything, I also exist inside everything. So Arjuna wants to know, can you show me that form? Your form that exists within everything, while you're also simultaneously outside of everything? Can you show me that form? So Krishna shows him the form. And it's everything that exists in all directions in one place. Kind of overwhelming. So Arjuna says, can you please remove that form again and show me the previous form? And Krishna shows the previous form. And he says, this form is very hard to behold. Only persons very qualified can see this form. So having displayed mystic opulence, because Krishna said, behold my mystic opulence, Arjuna now wants to verify, having seen these impersonal features or vast, vast features of Krishna's universal form, he wants verification. I like devotional service. Could you tell me, this is how the chapter 12 begins. You ready? Chapter 12 begins with Arjuna wanting verification. Which do you consider to be better? To be like I am, like your devotee? Or what about one who absorbs themselves in the impersonal feature? Impersonal feature. No person, but transcendental. The impersonal feature of the Absolute. That's a good question, isn't it? So what does Krishna say? I'm making it as simple as possible. Krishna says, both are good. And both are good because it may take many, many, many lifetimes, because he said that in previous chapter. Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanavan, because remember, this group over here, the Gyan Yoga section, approaching the Supreme through cultivation of knowledge. So Krishna says earlier in Bhagavad Gita, many, 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 many lifetimes of cultivation of Gyan. One may, rarely, of course one may not also, one may, see you later, one may come to the position of becoming a devotee. Now those who are cultivating Gyan, this is the final section of Bhagavad Gita, Gyan Yoga, that to cultivate knowledge and come to the position of devotional service, what's necessary? Here's what's necessary. Association of devotees. Because in the association of devotees, you get to hear about the personal feature. Supposing you through knowledge, you become very elevated in knowledge, and part of the symptom of elevation of knowledge is detachment from the temporary, because you're attached or becoming attached to that which is not temporary, or the impersonal absolute feature of the Supreme. As you get closer and closer and closer, it's not that you're going to like send a rocket ship or you're going to bump into Krishna or something. It requires an association of devotees. And then in the association of devotees, sometimes persons come to the conclusion that Krishna is everything. Vasudev Sarvamiti. Vasudev has different meanings. one of the meanings, the direct meaning, is the son of his father, whose name is Vasudev. The son of Vasudev is known as Vasudev. There's another meaning. If you're an impersonalist, Vasudev means the all-pervading supreme, meaning Brahman, the all-pervasive Brahman. But so the all-pervasive Brahman is the source of everything. But what's the source of the all-pervasive Brahman? Krishna. So Vasudev Sarvamiti, Samahatma, Mahatma, you know the meaning. The girl in the red dress. Mahatma? Atma means the soul, right? And Maha means Prashadam, right? No. Maha means great. So Mahatma, like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma, great soul. So such a great soul, Mahatma, such a great soul, Su Durlabha is very difficult to find, very rare. To go through the path of yoga, Gyan Yoga, and cultivate knowledge, meet a devotee and say, yes, Krishna is everything. I surrender to him. That's rare. Meeting a devotee is rare. What to speak of a Gyani accepting that Krishna is everything. So that's what Krishna says in this chapter also. That was an earlier chapter. He's repeating the same idea here in chapter 12. Then he says two other things. This is about the question, which is better, worship of the impersonal or worship of the personal feature? So he says two things. The worship of the impersonal feature, it's very troublesome. For those who are embodied, that's pretty much everybody. For those who are embodied, progress on this path is very difficult. So that's one reason. It's rare, it's very difficult, and in the bhakti process, here's the best news of all. Those who worship Krishna's personal form, Krishna helps. So the math is really easy. Everybody knows what math is. So your effort plus Krishna's help, which is greater? So he recommends take his help, and he extends his help when you ask for it. Supposing you don't ask for it, not only you don't ask for it, you say, you don't exist. Okay. It's troublesome. Klesho dikkatarashtesham, avyakta sakta chetasam. It's very difficult. So he's recommending devotional service in comparison or in contrast to worship of the impersonal feature. It's really direct. Okay, now we're ready for the next section. The next section is Krishna reiterates that it's good to, if you like to memorize some verses, these are some good verses to memorize. Because Krishna says it again, the topmost system of yoga. He said it at the end of chapter 6. He said it again in the middle 6 chapters. Now he's summarizing everything that he said so far. It's really nice. He makes it really easy for us. And some people still don't get it. So what's the topmost system of yoga? It's bhakti. Here's the definition. Two things. Just fix your mind upon me. Just fix your mind upon me. Madgatena antaratmana. We've been saying that phrase over and over because it's the end of chapter 6. What the mind does, fix your mind upon me. And engage all your intelligence in me. Mai buddhim niveshaya. Now, if your intelligence, we went over this, but we'll do it again. The senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is superior to the senses. The intelligence is superior to the mind. And the soul is above all of them and above even the soul is the super soul. So the goal of yoga is to connect with super soul. But it's imperative. It's not optional. You have to have a spiritual conception of who you are. Say it negative. Without a spiritual conception of who you aren't going to make very much progress in any kind of spiritual practice, including yoga. Say it the other way. As long as you hold on to a bodily conception of life, you're not going to make much progress. Something, but not much. So with a spiritual conception of life, how do you get that? How do you get a fixed spiritual conception of life? Answer: intelligence. Let's say the other way. Supposing you don't have intelligence, is it likely that you're going to be able to fix yourself in a spiritual conception of life? Not very likely. Not very likely. So where do you get intelligence from? Answer: super soul. That's nice. Now, we had this nice discussion. I hope you guys, the members here, can appreciate. Question: Does Krishna only give intelligence to devotees, or does Krishna give intelligence to not only non-devotees, but all living beings? I see your hand in the red shirt. All living beings. I agree with you. You agree? Here's Prabhupada's example. The cat wants the milk. The housewife is in the kitchen. The cat waits till the housewife leaves so she can jump up on the table and get the milk. Another example. There's a thief. It's dark of night, and he's prowling around. He'd like to steal. Super Soul says, "Not now, here comes somebody." So he waits till somebody goes, now you go to steal. And the person inside is saying, somebody's trying to steal. So there's a competition for intelligence from the one who's protecting their property and the one who wants it. But intelligence comes from the super soul, even for non-devotees. The birds that fly south in the winter, where's that intelligence come from? Same place. All living entities receive intelligence. But then there's a special kind of intelligence. What's that one? The intelligence by which you can come to Krishna. Dadami bodhi yogam tam. What's the next phrase? Yena mam upayanti te. By which you can come to me. Krishna gives intelligence by which you can come to him. If Tesham satata yuktanam. You're a little determined. Dritavrata, determined to stay engaged with your body and with your mind. Then Krishna, within his service to Krishna, Krishna will give intelligence. Proportionate to, actually. Because sometimes not. Sometimes not. That's most of us. Sometimes not. We're more enthusiastic and then we're spaced out or complacent. So sometimes not. That's unsteady bhakti. But what Krishna is saying in this verse, this is perfection of yoga, perfection of bhakti yoga. Mind absorbed in me, intelligence fixed in me. Two things, and that means that what goes down here, the senses are also engaged in alignment with the intelligence in the mind. Thus you will live in me always. You will live in me always. Without a doubt. Na samshaya. Without a doubt. Great. That's the goal. Now supposing you're not there yet. What about me? I'm not there yet. So Krishna gives some direction to Arjuna and to us what to do if you're not there yet. Want to hear what he says? If you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, you'll develop, at least the potential is, you will develop a desire to attain me. You develop a desire to attain by following the. So it's a sadhana, or it's following some rules because it'll help you become clean of consciousness. And when consciousness becomes clean, there's a desire to be connected to Krishna. And then comes the mind that's fixed and the intelligence that's always absorbed. So somebody might say, well, that sounds very nice, but not so easy for me. So what about me? What's my position? What should I do? Krishna then says, if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, because some people have little difficulty, then we're going down the yoga ladder. We're going down to Karma Yoga. What's Karma Yoga say? What does Karma Yoga say? Perform your prescribed work and offer the results to Krishna, right? That's yoga. Karma Yoga. Prescribed work and offering the results to Krishna. So if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. For by working for me, you will come to the perfect state. It's not like mechanical, like a vending machine. It's not like that. But the potential is there. Because we'll go back up the yoga ladder. By detached work, the attachment subsides, and when the attachment subsides, that person unto whom you're offering the results becomes more the center of your focus. And then it becomes easier to follow the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, which then fixes the mind and intelligence in Krishna. Well, somebody might say that sounds nice, but I'm not there yet, so what should I do? There's hope. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, what should you do? Be charitable. Do charity work. That's not like perfection, but it's something, some place to begin. And try to be self-situated. What does be self-situated? It doesn't mean be selfish. It means have some cultivation of understanding what's beyond the temporary. So we'll go back. Offer the results to Krishna, and if you can't offer the results to Krishna, then be in the mode of goodness, and in the mode of goodness, you do kind things and charity things, and you try to do that which is beneficial for others. Compassionate work. Be compassionate, and try to understand in a deeper sense. Try to understand. There's lots of literature out there, lots of people that are teaching these things. Not very clearly, but in any case, be self-situated. Know who you are beyond matter. I just came across something that I found very interesting, so I'll share with you. I'm looking at our younger set of people. There's 6 of you back here, and there's some number of you over here. You've heard of science, right? You've heard of rocket ships? You know who's one of the first ones that built a rocket ship? He's a German. Name is Werner von Braun. You heard his name? Anybody back here? Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun wrote a book saying, in essence, keeping it simple, the further and further and further I go with my experimentation and fact-finding in scientific research, I've concluded that life is eternal. And he wrote a book about it, or at least an essay about it. And that essay is in another book. So somebody that's interested, I'll send to Dayasindu the quote and the reference that the book is found in. Excuse me, the reference in which that reference is found in a book that concludes his writing. So it's possible, it's kind of unusual, But for a very advanced scientist that's discovering things that are, normal people don't have the brain power to understand, he's reached the conclusion, life is eternal. And there's many other things that he has to say about that topic. But material nature is also eternal. And he goes through its manifest and unmanifest stages, and he's a very thoughtful person. So try to be self-situated means that we're existing eternally. Minimally. We're existing eternally. And be charitable. And if you do that, it'll help you do karma yoga nicely. And do that nicely, it'll help you become inclined to follow the regulations of bhakti yoga. You do that, and it'll help you fix your mind and intelligence in Krishna. So that's the ladder. It went down the ladder, because it's very clear. There's a ladder. We know what this from chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita. There's a yoga ladder. Krishna says, this is the top rung of the yoga ladder. Now here in chapter 12, he's going down the yoga ladder. Then he's going to go back up a little bit. Here's the next verse. If you cannot do this, then cultivate knowledge. Lots of people ready to do that. No, what they're cultivating is not knowledge. They're cultivating information and avidya. But cultivate knowledge. Better than knowledge. So knowledge is gyan. Our younger group over here. Gyan. Cultivate gyan. Now the teaching of bhakti, the teaching of Lord Brahma, Jnane prayasa udapasya. You've heard that phrase before? It's in Brahma's prayers. We touched on it yesterday evening at the temple. Jnane prayasa udapasya means to udapasya, discard. The prayasa, the endeavor to cultivate knowledge. Now look at this. Here Krishna is saying, if you can't do this, then at least cultivate knowledge. But go beyond that. Jnane prayasa udapasya. And what do you do instead? Namanta eva. Namanta is the same as namaste or nama om. It's offering obeisances. Namanta eva. Offer your obeisances to Krishna. Giving up the speculative tendency. But if you can't do any of these, so cultivate knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is when the mind is fixed through the process of meditation. Dhyan. Right? Chapter 6. Dhyan. And better than meditation is karma yoga, renunciation of the fruits of work. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. Say it the opposite. If you're attached, we all have bodies. There may be some other entities floating around here that don't have bodies, but most of us have bodies. And as long as we have bodies, and there's a soul inside, then we're going to do something, because the soul animates the body. And when you do something, there's the fruit of what you do. And as long as there's attachment to the fruits of what you do, the mind is disturbed. Noticed? Mind sometimes becomes disturbed. And we should understand from Bhagavad Gita and introspection that the cause is attachment to something that may bring me happiness, but it doesn't bring happiness. So whatever it brings, it doesn't bring happiness. It brings something. And that something is not what happiness is, so we're disappointed. Even if you get it, what to speak if you don't get it. And then you get it, and it's not happiness, and then it's gone, and then you lament. It's not a good program. Being attached to the results of your work being embodied soul is problematic, but that you don't just get a paring knife and you get rid of the material body. That doesn't work either. So what to do? Yoga was what to do. And practice detachment by karma yoga. And then your mind can become peaceful. And then you can go further with the yoga process. Even better than meditation, according to this verse, is work without attachment to your work. When does school resume? Tomorrow? When do you have to go back to school? Okay. Yes? Some is tomorrow. Some is next week. Day after tomorrow. Okay. So supposing you're sitting in the classroom tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and you look at your teacher and you say, you know what? I'm detached. I sat in the Bhagavad Gita class, and you know what? I'm not going to endeavor for results. I'm detached. That doesn't mean do nothing. You don't become a blob. You do something, but the results are offered to Krishna. Even in the classroom or in anything. In the workplace, in the kitchen, in the marketplace, in the traffic, the result is up to Krishna. And you offer the results up to Krishna. And you accept the result that comes from Krishna as Krishna's mercy, whatever that is. Now you make choices as you're moving along, but it's the work that you do should be with offering the results unto Krishna. So now we're going to try to end the chapter. The last section of chapter 12 is Krishna is going to describe something really sweet. He's going to describe how Krishna's got a big warehouse. And in his warehouse is good qualities. And those who are his devotees, those who are Krishna's devotees, he decorates his devotees with good qualities. And they're because they're resting upon Krishna's mercy, they stay. There's the other kind of quality, and that's the reflection of a good quality. What's the reflection of a good quality? Here's a very simple example. Supposing here's a mirror, and supposing here's an apple. And when you look in the mirror, you can see the reflection of the apple. So it looks just like an apple. But there's no substance in the reflection. And all you have to do is turn the mirror a little bit, and the reflection's gone. There goes the apple. It wasn't substantial. It looked like the real thing. Looks just like the real thing because it's a good mirror. But it's insubstantial and it's impermanent, both. So quality is something that's substantial and it's not impermanent. And Krishna has a warehouse of good qualities that he decorates his devotees with. When he sees that they actually are of the character that he has described or so far in these middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna decorates his devotees. And when Krishna decorates his devotees with good qualities, Krishna smiles. This is very nice. You follow? Qualities come from Krishna. And Krishna smiles when he sees how he's decorated his devotees with nice qualities. And the devotees come before Krishna not with pride. Hey, look at my good quality. They go before Krishna saying, you're so kind. I'm unqualified, but you've decorated me with some quality. And now I can do well in my scholastic work. I can do well in my math class. I can do well in my geometry class. I can do well in whatever your classes are. The ability comes from Krishna. Qualities come from Krishna. And if you're trying to do what you do for Krishna, then Krishna will decorate you with qualities. And you'll become superlative. What to speak of, like Werner von Braun, if he had met Prabhupada, he would have been a great devotee. He didn't get that good fortune, at least in that lifetime. So I'm going to read. This is qualities decorating the devotee. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal both in happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence fixed on me. It sounds like that first verse where he's describing, this topmost stage of bhakti. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Next, he by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. It's very dear to me. Now, the secret is you have to be attached to Krishna, otherwise these features of duality are going to overwhelm you sometimes and sometimes. Sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. Sometimes pleasure, sometimes pain. Sometimes fear, sometimes anxiety. But equipoised. How's that possible? Being absorbed or attached to Krishna. He's giving this characteristics of Ananya Bhakti that he's spoken about multiple times prior to this chapter 12. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure expert without cares, free of all pains, not striving for some result, not striving, so it's again, they say tomorrow or the day after you're back in school. Not striving for some result doesn't mean I don't care. It means the goal is pleasing Krishna as opposed to the goal is getting a good score, and I get a good score and I get some 5 gold stars on my report card and mom and dad pat me on the head. And my friends say, oh, you're smart. Now that may happen, but that's not what happiness is. Nor is it what pleases Krishna. You get good scores in your exams at school or exams in life. That's not what pleases it. That one is attached to Krishna makes you free from striving for some result. Such a person is very dear to me. Almost done. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces all auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me. Now there's one more, and then it ends the chapter. And the one more is where Krishna, he has 2 varies. Very, very. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, Shratadana Mat Parama, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So it's possible to become very dear to Krishna. And it depends on Krishna's decorating you with his nice warehouse full of good qualities. And he's very happy to do that when he sees they actually want me. Now, before Krishna says they actually want me, he'll ask you a couple of questions. This is Prabhupada speaking at a class in New York. Prabhupada said, the devotee comes to Krishna and says, my dear Lord Krishna, for so many lifetimes I've been wandering in the world of illusion, attached to so many temporary illusory things. I now want to be your devotee. Please accept me. Krishna says, oh? You want to be my devotee? What about a little sense gratification, Prabhupada made a voice sound with his voice like that. And then he went, no, I only want you. Krishna says, maybe he does want me or she. What about a little difficulty? A little hardship, a little trouble? You sure you still want me? Whatever you know, Mahaprabhus, you can embrace me, you can trample me, you can neglect me, make me brokenhearted. You can do with me whatever you like. I'm your devotee. Oh, he or she actually wants me. Then let me give myself to them. Now, because I recently heard this nice story, this principle is a universal principle. And I just this morning, at about 5:30 or 6, I was discussing with the Chinese devotees this morning. 5:30 this morning? That's early this morning. So we're discussing a nice book that Prabhupada wrote, Light of the Bhagavad, 1961. He wrote the book. And it would skip many things. One of the things that he's teaching in this book is the importance. His audience is some people in Japan that were holding a conference on cultivation of the human spirit, whatever that meant to those people. Cultivation of the human spirit can mean anything. So Prabhupada wrote the book for that conference. And he's indicating from scenes of nature, from the rainy season, Canto 10, Chapter 20, the rainy season, what happens when it's rainy season? Many nice things happen. And then there's how to understand lessons of life from scenes in nature. That's the type of book it is. So Prabhupada is encouraging the sages, like frogs when it's the rainy season. Listen to the metaphor. When it's the rainy season, it's water everywhere. So the frogs come out of the caves and they start making the frog sound, croaking. Similarly, under the guidance of the sages, the brahmacharis, they also chant Vedic mantras. When it's auspicious, when it's favorable, the frogs come out and make their sound. And similarly, when the sages instruct the brahmacharis, they come out and chant Vedic mantras. And so Prabhupada is indicating in his commentary that all persons of Madhyama status should get together and promote the same glorification of the personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter, in Prabhupada's writing, it doesn't matter the background that you've come from. There's not a matter of ism. This ism is a good one, and that ism isn't as good as this ism, and another. So it's not that kind of. Prabhupada was encouraging God consciousness, or the principles of Bhagavad Gita, similes, encouraging God consciousness. So in that context, I heard a nice story. I've told this story already, but I'll say it again. It's a nice story. Saint Francis, this is a Christian person, Saint Francis of Assisi. He was very, very elevated person. And he lived a life of seclusion, mainly. He lived in a monastery for monks, but he also lived under trees, and he lived a very, very, very simple life, like our Goswamis. And he had one assistant whose name was Leo, and Leo kept careful notes about his interactions with St. Francis. So one time St. Francis was really ill, like really ill. And Leo couldn't bear it. So he pleaded with St. Francis, You're so dear to God. Please just put in a word. Ask him to relieve you from this terrible suffering so at least you can function. St. Francis, with great pain in his voice, said, if I didn't know that you are speaking because of your affection for me, I'd instruct you, get out of here. I don't want to see your face for the rest of my life. And then he threw himself on the floor from his bed and started praying to God, please do with me whatever you wish. To instruct. That's his heart, but to also instruct Leo, and that means to instruct us. So my point in telling this story is it's not unique to followers of Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita isn't a sectarian teaching. It's you can say spiritual teaching or God-conscious teaching or Bhagavad Bhakti teaching. It's that the principles are universal. So we should be encouraged. Prabhupada was encouraging the reader in light of the Bhagavad. I mentioned this this morning. Raghunath Das Goswami included this in his Manashiksha. Manashiksha is a text that teaches how to come to the stage of Raga Bhakti. Raga Bhakti is like way up there. How to get to that stage includes what I just said. Having respect and making friendships with, and exactly what Prabhupada was doing in this light of the Bhagavad. And I'm bringing it in so we don't get a sectarian idea that our ism is the good ism, and then there are people that have access to it also. The teaching of Bhagavad Gita is so clear, and most people don't follow it. Even people that read it don't follow it. What to speak of people that don't know it? But it's not a sectarianism. It's a principle of life. So devotional service is a principle of life. It comes about through association with those who are living by that principle. So our service, two things: receive it and give it. That's our service. It's our life. Receive and model it. Become little acharyas. Teach by example. Teach by your words. In school, or in the workplace, or in the community, or wherever you are. Be exemplars of Bhagavad Bhakti. It's very powerful. The more that's done, the more the consciousness that's become darkened by the age of Kali can become brightened and lifted. Okay, so that's chapter 12. That's the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And let's see if there's some discussion. And my compliments to the younger section here. You endured all of this. Thank you. Go ahead.
So like you said, like intelligence is given to all beings, but then like all different beings have like different levels of intelligence.
That's correct. Yeah, different levels of intelligence, right?
Like, is it just like among species, or is it like among humans too? People have different levels of intelligence.
Spiritual intelligence is almost universally available to the human species. You can Prabhupada explains this. In a circus, they can train animals to do stuff. Jump through hoops and dance and, all kinds of things. Behaviors can be trained, but God consciousness is not accessible for the animals. But with the human form of life, that kind of intelligence, Bodhi, by which yenamamu payantite, by which you can come to Krishna. That's a privilege of the human form. Is that all right? Okay. You have something? We missed you last night. Did you see it on live or video? Well, I want you to check out that video. Okay. Well, watch it's recorded. Check it out. Okay. Now your question?
So you said that.
Speak right into the microphone.
So,
You're good. Good. I said.
Huh?
I said what?
okay. So you said that Krishna decorates you with good qualities. If you are attached to him, how does it just happen randomly?
How does it happen?
Yeah, basically.
It's love. That's how it happens. Relationship, but their particular kind of relationship, a loving relationship.
Okay.
And supposing.
Like one day.
No, it's not one day. It's gradual.
Oh, okay.
Gradual. Okay, that's what you meant. Okay, gradual. It happens like the rising of the sun, which is gradual. The sun is luminous. And even at night, the sun is luminous, but we can't see the sun because it's not dawn yet. And the dawn is like a little bit of light. Have you watched the sunrise? There's dark, and then it starts to get a little light in the firmament. And then watch, and then, boop, there's the sun right on the horizon. It's really bright. But it's much bigger than when it rises and it gets smaller but more intense. So it's like the rising of the sun. Krishna's decorating his devotee with qualities is like that. The quality is still there, but it's not fully matured and with all of its intensity and strength. So keep going in your relationship with Krishna, and good qualities will become yours.
So you said that like San Francis, like he when he was really ill,
Yeah.
he did not want to get better.
It's not that he didn't want to get better. He didn't want to ask God to get me better. He didn't want to look at, I've done lots for you. We got a business deal going. I've done so much for you. You do something for me, okay? He didn't want to do that. He doesn't want a business relationship with God. He wanted to get better, but it's up to Krishna whether he'll get better or not. Just like getting very diseased, whatever it was, it doesn't say what the illness was, but it wasn't just a mild; it was like very severe. It was painful, whatever it was, and his loving assistant couldn't bear it. So Saint Francis didn't want to ask God, please make this illness less. A business deal. You understand? Okay.
And also like why did like he say like because like the assistant, like when he told him to ask Krishna to ask Krishna for him to get better, like why did he
Are you asking about yourself or you're asking about Saint Francis?
Saint Francis.
Saint Francis. His response to your question is, you please do with me what you like. I'm yours. Mahaprabhu's teaching, isn't it? Same teaching. And the spirit of the teaching is the teaching. So he embraced the spirit, although he had no association with Mahaprabhu. He had the same spirit. So we can learn from these elevated persons. They're teaching us by their example. Your father wants to say something.
He's asking why did he behave to his assistant when his assistant is trying to help him to get out of the... I think that's the question.
That's your question? Oh. Father knows best. Okay. Well, two things. He had a mood and he had affection. His mood, St. Francis's mood was, please don't ask me to ask God for something. Please don't ask me to ask God for something. Please don't do that. And also, St. Francis, wanted to teach Leo. Now, it was extreme. If I didn't know that you're speaking out of your affection for me, I wouldn't allow you to be in such close proximity. But he was teaching. So he threw himself on the ground and offered his prayer. Na danam, na janam, na sundarim. You know the verse, right? Ahaituki bhakti. He wanted undivided, unmixed, unmotivated devotional service. So that's why he was acting towards Leo the way that he did. Instruction. He had a mood, and it was also instructive. So guess what? Leo never again did that. He understood the mood of St. Francis. He doesn't want me to ask God to be in a business deal with him. He doesn't want me to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. You got the microphone. Go for it.
Arikshan Maharaj, then with Pranam.
A little louder.
Actually, Karma Yoga, where we need to give the results to the God. That is the detachment where we need to develop, right, Maharaj? So whenever we are detaching, so normally if we are doing any work, most of the time say for the kids, I wanted to get first rank, or I may get something, then I will do this. This type of attitude will be there.
Yes.
So
That's our material conditioning. It doesn't have to be there, but that's our material conditioning.
yeah, normally that is the way
Yes.
of most of us,
Yes.
the way of the work.
Yeah.
Now we are not worried about those results, then where we are getting that motivation, maybe some tips to have the people to do the work. Because if suppose, okay,
What's the impetus to go beyond that material conditioning is your question, yes? Sadhu Sangha. You know the meaning. Association with those who are beyond that tendency, or are moving strongly beyond that tendency, and get their association. What happens when you're in that association? What happens when you stand near a fire? You get warm. Through association, you develop qualities like those with whom you associate. It's a teaching in Bhagavad Gita. Sangat sanjayate kama. Prabhupada refers to that phrase from Bhagavad Gita.
say as a grahastha, I need to do some of the work. Suppose
The advice isn't stop your work. It's adjust the consciousness behind. And how do you adjust the consciousness behind? Sadhu Sangha. And one of the points of emphasis that I've made 4 times, well, now that you're inviting me to say it the 5th time, it's by sound. By hearing. By hearing from the right source, and that's sound, and then seeing nice examples. Here's what it looks like. Let me give you a little example. I was expecting. Can you give an example? You can read about ideal household life. That's nice. Then you know what what at least what the book says. And then supposing you meet an ideal household couple. Oh, that's what it looks like. And that's like you don't imitate or make a carbon copy, but you understand this is inspirational. Let me move in this direction. My nature is a little different than him or her, so I'm going to act according to my nature, but I'm inspired. And then, look, here's another ideal household couple. And then you see there's, like in this vase, Prabhupada's example. In the vase, there's different flowers of different colors and different varieties, and that makes it nice. Supposing it's only one flower of one color. Not the same as a bouquet has... So varieties, so the sadhu sangha amongst grahastas, who they're also doing their duties, but with a certain consciousness that my life is meant for Krishna. And it looks a little different this way, a little different that way. But the principle is, my life is meant for Krishna. And that will help you. So sadhu sangha will help you go beyond the stuck in the conditioned stage to the next, to where you want to go. So read the books, because then it'll tell you this is the principle to live by, and then nice examples who are living by those principles. That's why we have communities, sadhu sangha, and then loving exchange. That's ideal. Your daughter wants to say something, or she just likes to hold the microphone? Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there's a question online.
Okay.
From Ankit Purohit Prabhu. He's asking, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. How to appreciate the devotees? Will this help us move forward in spiritual life? And he's also asking, how do we...
Before you go there, he's also asking,
Sorry.
how to
appreciate the devotees.
sadhu sangha. Ask her, she knows now. You associate with nice... Associating doesn't mean just like hang out. Associating means you open your heart to those persons. And when you open your heart to devotees, good devotees, exemplary devotees, something happens inside. There's some experience, some transformation, and then some sense of appreciation, gratitude, wanting to do some service. There's to do the service even if you don't want to do some service, but even better is when your heart is open and you see something, hear something, feel something, you want to serve those devotees. So there's the regulative, and then there's the spontaneous or natural, driven by, fueled by gratitude and appreciation. So that's how to. Now the next question.
Will appreciating devotees help us move forward in spiritual life?
What if I said no? Of course. Of course. But then the appreciation goes beyond just smiling. It's you do something. What's meaningful to serve the devotees that you're feeling some appreciation for. So whatever the answer to that question is, and if you're not sure, you can ask someone who's guiding you in your Krishna consciousness, ask some senior devotee, what can I do to demonstrate, to display my feelings of appreciation for this devotee or devotees or something? And you take some guidance, and then you move in that direction, and then you get some realization. That's loving exchange, at least the seed of loving exchange.
He has another question, Maharaj.
Okay.
How to keep on moving forward in spiritual life?
Don't become complacent. What does that mean? The question reminds me of something that Prabhupada said. In spiritual life, you're either progressing or regressing. There's no standing still. Then he gave the example. Supposing you're in a river, and the river is moving swiftly downstream. You have to move swiftly upstream or you're going downstream. Become complacent and you're going downstream. So how to continue to make progress is you make efforts, and not sometimes and sometimes not. Because just the sometimes not is when you start going downstream again. Don't be complacent. Particularly in relation to the holy name and the Vaishnavas. Don't be complacent. Just this morning, one of my godbrothers sent me a nice quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Let me see if I can find it. I'll just read it to you quickly. First, I got to find it. Oh, there it is. Don't become complacent in chanting. Distraction in chanting, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from Harinam Chintamani. Distraction in chanting produces a type of illusion, causing serious offenses against the holy name that are difficult to overcome. This illusion leads to craving for wealth, women, position, success, and cheating. When these material attractions cover the heart, one loses interest in chanting the holy name. Anything else online?
No more.
Okay, anything else in the room? Yes?
Maharaj, in verse 16, translation, Prabhupada says, not striving for some result. It's kind of similar question to what Shanta Mataji asked. So both our material activities and even for our spiritual progress, we're always asked to set a goal.
Yes.
And work towards it.
That's so the exclusion of striving for some result means on the material side.
It's only the material side.
Yes, that's what that should be understood. So what's the spiritual desire? What's on this result that's on the spiritual side? Go ahead, give the phone. It's not wanting something from Krishna, but wanting to do something for Krishna. That's a spiritual result.
So Maharaj, the chapter is so nice. It flows very well. Tells us, the nice. Whatever Krishna says is all good. But when we are dealing in the daily life, there are things that I am unable to decide which work is the right kind of work. Is it out of attachment I'm doing that work, or I'm not looking at the fruit, but I'm unable to decide whether it is right for me to do that. I feel like it is my responsibility, but I don't know if there is a different approach to it.
Okay.
I'm specifically talking in terms of like kids.
Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations. You're introspective. And that's a good start. When you're introspective, there's not always a clear, do I turn left or right? Do I choose this or that? Should I do this first and that second, or vice versa? There's not always clarity. When you're if you're not introspective, then the consciousness is more dull, and you don't really know anyways. You're not even asking anyways. But when you're introspective, it's a good sign that and you're honest. And you really don't know. So that's not a bad place to be in. That's a good place to be in. So now what do you do when you don't know? Because something has to happen. So you look to what Scripture says. You look to the example of the Mahajans or great souls. You look to those who you have some knowledge of as today's world devotees that are good examples. They're persons of integrity and honesty and simplicity, and they're striving at least. So you look to those kinds of benchmarks or standards, and then you do the best you can. And when you do the best you can, because you're introspective, you're looking for some signal from Krishna that wasn't the right choice. That is to say, you're ready to adjust. You're flexible because you just want that which is going to be pleasing to Krishna. That's the right thing. Now, there could be several things that are pleasing to Krishna, and then, your introspection is, when I'm choosing this one or that one, is it because I like this one and don't like that one? Or is it because I feel this is going to please? You're exercising your bhakti muscle. Right? You follow what I'm saying? So it's like physical therapy. When your muscles aren't working the way they should work, you go to a physical therapist. And physical therapist says, do whatever they say, and you do 15 of those and 10 of those 3 times a day. So you just do that. You exercise your bhakti muscle. And as your bhakti muscle gets stronger, then you're a better recipient for Krishna to indicate this is what you should do. You're dependent upon Krishna at every step in the introspection process, and you're looking for the Krishna signal to tell you, do this, don't do that. The signal that may not be so clear. So with those people that are good at advising, they're not micromanaging, they're just good at advising. Here's some standard that you should look to in making such day-to-day decisions. You do 10 of those and 15 of those, and you'll slowly, your bhakti muscle gets stronger. And Krishna will give you some indication as you go further. Until then, you're doing the best you can. Exercising your bhakti muscle. You follow?
Would directly just...
Here's the microphone.
Yeah, just doing more of direct devotional service help
of course.
Into...
Well, here's the best thing that will help is chant without offense. Oh, Maharaj, don't ask me to do that. But that's the best thing you can do. Direct devotional service, yes. You're good. Direct devotional service. And the best of direct devotional service is chanting. And you've said that's an area that you struggle with. Now that's a good lesson for you. It's how important it is, and I struggle with it, which will tell you why the other things are struggles for you also. You follow? So it's not like scolding you or something like that. It's just an indication of here's a response to the question you're asking. Every day you chant, and every day focus on chanting with attention. And you're not so good at it. Many of us are not so good at it, but you keep practicing it anyways because it's the most important thing. All right? Good luck. All power to you. Okay, it looks like we're done. You have something? No. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, this class, you were talking a lot about good qualities, and even in the past couple classes, you were mentioning about good qualities as well. On the 31st, I think you mentioned a point saying obedience is the first law
of discipline.
Of discipline, right? I was hoping if you could describe a little more, comment more on the word obedience, because many times nowadays, especially our generation, when we hear obedience, we think of exactly. Yes.
I'm going the other direction.
correct, or something as if like we're just blindly listening to someone else, or there's a lot of emphasis now on trying to be like
Do
the
your own thing.
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
Discover for yourself what's meaningful to you and then do that.
Yes.
That's okay. That's a type of introspection. It doesn't have to be a rebellious introspection, but it's a type of introspection. So I have to put in my younger generation hat for a moment here, and here's what it doesn't mean, and then we can say what it does mean. What it doesn't mean is you turn your intelligence to the opposition, and you become a blind follower, because obedience is the first law of discipline. That's what it doesn't mean. Here's another thing it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean here's an ism, and somebody came up with this ism, and so because somebody came up with this ism and they're charismatic, or they're demanding or something like that, or they promise good stuff, so I just become obedient because they're charismatic or demanding or they promise good stuff. That's not what obedience means. Dharmam hi sakshat. So the principles of Dharma, just like in Prabhupada's example, law. I gave this example the other day. There may be some younger generation people that want to drive and they don't have a driver's license yet. So they could say, look, I'm going to drive. Pull over, buddy. Let me see your license. What? No license? You're breaking the law. So the law is, you comply with law because it comes from government. And there's laws of nature that come from God. And we just acknowledge there's laws of nature. Now, I have my own nature that's largely influenced by the modes. Now, how do I regulate those modes in such a way it'll lead to becoming freer from the lower modes and more towards the higher modes? So I want to do it my own way. Well, that's not how it's going to happen. So obedience means you recognize here's the landscape of life, and there's principles of elevation, and they're very clear. I can have a self-styled approach to those principles of elevation, but it doesn't change the principles of elevation. And by making a decision, not a blind one, so here's obedience, what is, I recognize there's laws of nature and principles by which one can elevate oneself from the unnecessary struggle with darkness of ignorance, and recognize there is light, and then we move towards the light. And I'm going to still be who I am, but I'm acknowledging there's principles of elevation of consciousness, how to live by that. That's obedience, and that makes one a disciplined person. For example, eating. I'm not going to be obedient. Then you pay consequences. So that it's not like you have to eat the same way everybody eats, the same diet or something. But there are things that are just over there that we don't touch. Well, I want. There's consequences. So you understand the path to light, and you'll be as free as you like within the path to light. One devotee I know, who's a householder, he describes discipline of children, and then so the discipline of children, in his words, go like this: here's the backyard. There's the fence. within the backyard, there's a swing and there's some things to do. And when you're out there in the backyard, do whatever you like, but stay within the fence and, they play to your heart's content. So there's some boundaries to, the parenting and giving children freedom to be themselves. You don't hit another kid, and there's some do nots. And then there's abundant freedom. There's boundaries. That's what obedience, at least one part of obedience. There's a lot more to say on that, but I think that's a good beginning. I think we're ready to end. Thank you all for coming. And what's next? There's something else that's next, right? What's next? Okay, I thought so.
Anyway, so on the last day of Maharaj lecture, we are going to request Maharaj to personally give Bhagavad Gita books. Those who are interested can come and receive Bhagavad Gita book from Maharaj. Now that the series is going on Bhagavad Gita, it'd be nice to receive book from Maharaj and for those who plan, please let me or Shari Mataji know. She can take the names and you can get the welcome part. Thank you.
Now we're going to go do Aarti, right?
We'll be doing Aarti over there. Please join.